This right here is called the radial arm saw. What we use this machine for in class is to cut boards to rough length. The type of cut that this board does is something called a cross cut. If you take a look at this piece of oak board right here, I just grabbed it out of the scrap bin, the grain of the board goes from side to side like this. The purpose of this machine is to cut across the grain, so it's actually cutting the fibers this way. Now whenever we cut a board across the grain, you're shortening the length of a board. The reason why I said we use this machine to cut to rough length is because whenever we grab the lumber here, it comes straight from the lumber yard. So this is just something that they literally dropped off. I threw it on here, and then we're going to cut it to the rough length. Now, when I say rough length, let's say for instance I need a board that's 20 inches long. That's my final dimension. What I'm going to do on this machine is I'm going to add an inch to it, at least an inch. So what I do with the machine even turned off, take a tape measure, I mark it towards the top here, and good. I'm going to mark it right at 21, because this is my rough length, 21. I put a little mark here. Okay, another thing to be wary of is to make sure you don't have any of your measuring tools or anything on this table. I'm actually going to slide this out of the way. You don't want to have any accidents. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slide this board up here. I'm going to push it tight against this little fence right here. This is to help hold the board in place. The action of the saw blade, if you could see it without this guard here, it's actually spinning towards us. So the top of the blade is actually coming down towards us. Because of that, it wants to pull the board back. That's the reason why we have the fence here. If you just have, for instance, if you had the board right here and you tried pulling the saw blade through it, you could imagine with the force that the blade has, it's just going to push it straight back. So to prevent that, that's why we have the fence here. Now, every saw blade, this is it right here, okay, it's 1/8 of an inch thick. Now that might not seem like a lot, and it really isn't. However, whenever we start to do fine length measurements, the thickness of the blade, otherwise known as the kerf, disappears every time we cut a board. So if I'm measuring 21 inches, I want to make sure that the thickness of the blade is on the scrap side of the line. Otherwise, if I would cut right here and the thickness of the blade is on the good side of the line, I'm actually going to make this board 20 7/8 instead of 21. So I'm going to line it up. Now before I even turn it on, I'm going to have it in place. I'm going to slide this out. Looks like I need to bump it down still a little bit. Looks good right there. The thickness of the blade is on the scrap side of the line. Now, whenever we use this saw is very loud. It spins at a very high rate of speed. So if you have ear protection, go ahead and put that on. Next thing about this machine is your hand placement. The magical rule of thumb here is you don't want to have your hands anywhere closer than 4 inches to the blade. The only machine in here that you can do that with is the bandsaw. Okay, now with this machine, you're going to take your left hand, you're going to tuck your thumb under, and you're going to position it right here. And the reason is because after a while, let's say you're doing a repeated operation where you keep throwing a board up here and you keep putting your hand here and holding it in place, you're going to let your guard down. So it's a good thing to just learn how to do it the right way, tuck your thumb under so you never have to worry about that problem.
Yeah.
Okay, now everything's in place, the blade's where it should be, the board's where it should be. I'm going to tuck my thumb under on my left hand and hold it down. Now I'm going to turn it on with my right hand. I'm going to pull the saw blade the whole way through, and then slide the saw back. I'm going to turn it off and wait till the blade comes to a complete stop before I move anything. So here we go.